Hey guys, I want to talk about a topic that's supplementary to what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but I'm not sure you did. I'm assuming you did it last year. So I just want to talk about the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagoras theorem. It's basically a Greek idea that if you have a right triangle, there's a relationship among the sides of the right triangle. So we learned last year in geometry that if you have a right triangle is a triangle that has a right angle. So this is the right angle. This is the right triangle. And the side opposite the right angle, this is known as the hypotenuse. Right? It's called the hypotenuse. Once again, it's opposite the right angle, and it's the longest side. Okay. We're going to call that C, because you know the Pythagoras formula. The other two sides, these are known as the legs. These are the legs. We're going to call it A and B. A, B, and C are just letters. Now, you learn that the Pythagoras theorem is this relationship that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. I'm just going to say this again because this just bothers me. These are just letters. If I change this to K, E, and N, then what's the Pythagoras theorem? K squared plus E squared equals N squared. A, B, and C are just letters. So, once again, A and B are the legs, and C is the hypotenuse. And so, the book might give you some examples. It might say, find the sides, the different sides of the right triangle. And they'll say, okay, here's a right triangle, and this side is 6, and the other leg is 8. Find the hypotenuse. And you say, okay, I know that 6 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. You can write this equation in Desmos by changing this to X, or you can solve it on your own. 36 plus 64 equals 10. That equals C squared, equals 100. You know by inspection that C equals, it's plus or minus 10, but we're just going to write 10. Sometimes the numbers aren't so pretty, right? So I'm going to erase the numbers. You rewrite the triangle. Pause the video and rewrite the triangle over. I'm going to use the numbers. How about we do, 8, 17, and C. So this was first. The second question, find the leg. So you say, okay, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. You can use Desmos to solve this, or your GDC and solver, or you can solve by hand. 64 plus C squared equals 289, and then C squared, I'm never going to subtract 64 from both sides, equals 225. C equals plus or minus 15, but I'm going to ignore the 15. So the answer is 15. So that's the idea of the Pythagoras theorem. Once again, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Why am I talking about this? Because in the lesson, we were talking about distance, midpoint, and slope. And I just gave you the formulas. I said, here's the formulas, find the x1 and the y1, and then plug the numbers into the formula to find the distance and the midpoint and the slope. But I want to talk about how we can use the Pythagoras theorem to create those formulas. So the first problem we had asked us to find, it was 1, 3, and 4, 7. And so what we did was we can graph these. We can graph these 2 points on graph paper, or you can graph it on Desmos or GeoGebra. So we have the point 1, 3, Once again, this is a sketch, and 4, 7. And then the first thing I told you to do was draw a segment between the 2 points, right? And so we use the formula in the lesson. We know that the distance was 5. We know the midpoint was what was the midpoint? 1 plus 4, 3.5. Right, because 1 plus 4 is 5 divided by 2. Sorry, 2.5. And then 3 plus 7 is 10 divided by 2. That's 5. And the slope we found was 4 minus 1. No, I'm sorry. 7 minus 3 over which is 4, and 4 minus 1, which is 3. So we knew these from the formula. I want to use Pythagoras' theorem, or the idea, to help us. Now, I'm going to tell you, take a journey. Take a journey from x1, y1 to x2, y2. You think, Mr. Adler, what does that mean? Take a journey. Well, I'm going to get another color, and I'm going to take a journey first along the y. I'm going to take a journey along the graph paper. You have to ask yourself, how can we walk along graph paper? And the idea is we can only walk up and down the lines, the rise and rhyme and slope, or we can move to the left and the right. We can't. So let's take a journey along our graph paper. So I'm going to go up, right? And then I'm going to take my next journey, which is to the right. So I say, okay, I went from 3 up to 7. 3 to 7, that's a journey of plus 4. Then I took a journey from 1 to 4. 1 to 4, that's a journey of 3. So you say, what's the point? Well, if you notice, we just made a right triangle. We just made a right triangle. And so we could say the distance. So on graph paper, we just made a right triangle, and we can say, you know what? That distance squared is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. D squared equals 9 plus 16, which is 25. The distance equals 5. There's something we could do to the midpoint. Actually, we could do that, right? What's half of the y journey? 2. What's half of the x journey? 1.5. Right? 3 plus 2 equals 5. 1 plus 1.5 equals 2.5. That's kind of interesting, right? That's another way of thinking about the midpoint. It's half the journey. And then the last thing is slope. Well, you know what? We're done. We're done because we just found the journey, the rise over the run. We're done. And that's basically it. So that's how you would use your graph paper to find the distance, the midpoint, and the slope. Start at the point 1, take a journey along the graph paper to point 2, you have a journey up and a journey to the right, and you're finished.